Hey there students, it's my pleasure to take you through yet another teaching module in economics titled Produces Behavior. We have learned about supply analysis at length, and it is only right for us now to move on and to get into the mindset of the producers. See what are the factors that affect a producer really and how production takes place, what goes on in the mind of the producer as he takes certain decisions, how output changes due to a change in input, and so on. We will be learning about various concepts concerning production and producers' behavior. So here starts the lesson. Before we begin with our study, let us first spell out the contents of this module. We will learn about production function, the short run and the long run, the short run production function, the long run production function, fixed factors and variable factors. Let us begin by studying what is the production function. Production function studies the functional relationship between physical inputs and physical outputs of a commodity. Obviously, there is a relationship between inputs and outputs. So we can say that there is a functional relationship. They are related to each other in such a way that any change in the inputs can bring about a change in the output. That is what we mean by functional relationship. As you can see, the inputs here are labor and capital. They are injected into the production process, and using the inputs, we can derive the desired output, whatever it may be that we are producing. So obviously, there is some kind of a relationship between output and input. A change in the input can bring about a change in the output. Production function explains the relationship between factor inputs and factor outputs under given technology. So here we see on the left we have factor inputs examples shown to you. Natural resources are inputs, raw materials are inputs, human resource is an input, as well as capital. There is a relationship between inputs, that is the factors of production, and the outputs that are derived by putting the inputs through a conversion process which we call as production under the given technology. And here we have examples of goods and services. So production function is essentially the relationship between inputs and outputs. Any change in the input can bring about a change in the output. This relationship between the two variables, that is inputs and outputs, is studied under production function. Here is another way production function can be defined. It is a purely physical or technical relationship that tells the maximum output that can be produced from various combinations of inputs. So various combinations of inputs can be used and a certain maximum output can be produced. Here the inputs include factors like labor, capital, fuel, transportation, and so on. You can see here in a symbolic form the relationship, the functional relationship between inputs and output is shown. It tells us that output, that is denoted by Qx, is a function of the inputs x1 and x2. What we mean by function is the output depends on these inputs. Let me explain with the help of an example. In this example, we say that 40 units of the output are produced, and this level of production is attained by using 5 units of capital, K stands for capital, and 4 units of labor, L stands for labor. So 5 machines and 4 laborers can bring about an output of 40 units of the product. So therefore we say the output is a function of the inputs. The output depends on the input. So there is a technical, technological or physical relationship definitely between input and output. X1 is the amount of one input, X2 is the amount of another input. Q is the amount of goods produced or amount of units produced. As we learn about production function, we need to learn about two time frames that exist in the production process. One is the short run or the short period, and the other is the long run or long period. So what is a short run? It is a period in which every factor of production cannot be changed as per the desire of the producer. What this essentially means is all the factors that are used in the process of production cannot be changed together in the short run to bring about any change in the output. Some factors will remain fixed and the others will be variable or others will change in the short period. Let us see. Factors like skilled labor, machines, organization, and scale of production cannot be changed in the short run because it is too short a time to bring about changes in such factors of production. However, factors like unskilled labor, untrained labor, raw materials, and number of shifts can be changed in the short run. So now it is clear what is the short run. It is a period in which factors like unskilled labor, raw materials, number of shifts can be changed. Now let us study what is a long run or a long period. It is a period in which the producer has sufficient time in order to change all the factors and make them variable. So unlike the case of the short period where some factors were kept fixed and the others were able to change, in this case, in the long run, there is nothing that is going to be fixed. In the long period is long enough a time to bring about change in all the factors of production, fixed or variable. So long run refers to a longer time frame or longer time period than the short run. In the long run, there are no fixed inputs for any production process. Let us come to understand about the short run and the long run with the help of an example. Consider the production of batteries in a factory. Now let's see how this concept of short run can be applied here. In the short run, a battery factory would purchase more inputs and hire more employees in order to produce more batteries. However, in the long run, the same factory, it would be more desirable to build a new factory that could better handle the increased production. So suppose there is an increase in demand in the short period. How are they going to meet this demand suddenly? All they can do is buy more raw materials and maybe hire more unskilled labor. It is difficult to get skilled labor overnight. But in the long run, if they would want to cater to the increasing demand for batteries, it would be better if they would start up more factories, more sheds, more units, so as to handle the increased demand in the long run or the long time period. So why is this knowledge important? See, the differentiation between short run and long run is very important in economics because it tells companies, firms, industrialists what to do during different time periods. It clearly spells it out or clearly defines what pans out in the short period and what happens in the long period, what they should do, what they should not do, what are the decisions they need to make. For example, in the short run, if they want to increase the output in the short period, they could increase factors like hours of work, number of shifts, unskilled workers, raw materials, fuel, electricity, water, transportation, and so on. And in the long run, if they want to increase the output, they have to go in to increase the capacity, They will have to increase the factories, the industrial plants, the machinery, tools, equipment, skilled labor, and so on. I want you to visualize another example so that you understand the importance and the meaning of short run and long run. This applies to you. In the short run, you cram longer, the whole night for an exam, to score as much as you can since you didn't study in advance. What can you do if you've not studied earlier? All you can do is put in some more hours and spend the whole night studying, and in another 2 hours wake up and run for your exam, right? That is because you have very little time to catch up. However, if you study well in advance in the long run, and you refer to various books, make notes, attend online and offline classes, and you really read, revise, and review well, you will answer well. Why? Because you had long enough time to do all this and bring about some good marks for yourself. So if you remember this example, you will really understand how short run and long run applies to the production process. In the same way, let us take another example. In the short run, you can increase the number of cakes you bake by increasing the amount of ingredients, that is raw materials, and work longer hours at it. Probably you'll even call over a friend to help you with the baking so as to cater to an urgent order that you need to meet the next day. However, if you have long enough time and you envisage or you imagine that you might have a lot of demand for your cakes, then you can increase the number of cakes you bake by increasing the number of ovens or machines and skilled bakers or skilled manpower at your bakery. Thereby, you can increase the scale of your production. Let us see for other industries how short the short run can be. You'll be surprised to know that for the steel industry, the short period or the short run can even be 3 years, which means the long run would be more than 3 years, where the entire capacity of the plant is increased to increase the production of steel. You cannot just bring about a large-scale increase in steel in the short period, because to increase the scale of production in especially these large-scale industries, it takes a long time. So for the steel industry, the short period can run to even 3 years. For a printing press, for example, output can be increased in a day, even by increasing the working hours or putting in more raw materials, or even bringing some unskilled labor to help speed up the production. In the long run, for the printing press, you would have to get more printing machines to increase the output. For the tailoring sector, orders can be given in a short period of time if more hours are put in and some more unskilled workers are used. However, if you think that you could be getting more orders in the long period, then they can be taken by bringing in more sewing machines and more trained staff can be employed. Having learned what is the short run, we are now in a better position to understand what is the short run production function. So production function are of two types, the short run production function and the long run production function. Let us try to understand first what is the short run production function. In this type of production function, some factors are treated as variable, as changing, and other factors are fixed. And to increase output, additional units of variable factors are used. For example, increase in fuel, raw materials, unskilled labor, number of hours, number of shifts, overtime, and so on, only in order to increase the output of the commodity. So the output can be increased only by changing the variable factors or factors like the ones I have just mentioned. What is the long run production function? In this kind, all factors are treated as variable and increased in the same proportion for an increase in output. This happens in the long run or long period. There is enough time to change the amount of all the factors. The increase in output as a result of change in scale of production is called returns to scale. So unlike the case of the short-run production function, wherein some factors were fixed and others were made variable, and any change in the output was due to a change in the variable factor, here that is not the case. In this long-run production function, all factors are treated as variable. That means in the long run, factors are not divided as being fixed and variable. Here all the factors are changed in the same proportion, and that is why this change in output as a result of change in scale of production is also called as returns to scale. You see here in the example, 40 units of the output are produced using 5 units of labor and 4 units of capital. The output can be increased from 40 units to 80 units by increasing the labor, doubling the labor from 5 to 10, and doubling the capital from 4 to 8. Let's just study the distinction between short-run production function and long-run production function, having studied both now. In the short period of production, some of the inputs cannot be varied or changed because there is not enough time. For example, for an employer, it is easier to add labor than new equipment. Labor is an input factor which can be varied but still impacts production. Let's move on to long-run production function. There is enough time in this period of production for managers to vary or change all the inputs used to make a product, not just labor, but all inputs. For example, new equipment as well as labor can be added to the existing setup to boost production. We spoke about factors of production as being fixed and variable, but we really need to concretely define and understand what are fixed factors of production. Fixed factors are those, the application of which does not change with a change in output. Whether the machine produces nothing or 100 units, the fixed factor remains constant or same or unchanging. Fixed factors cannot be changed in the short run. They can be changed in the long run. Example, skilled labor, factory building, organization, managers, and so on. So you see, when the output changes, the fixed factors do not change. Does a machine get consumed in the process of production? No. When something is being produced, the inputs like raw materials are converted into outputs of finished products. However, the fixed factors like skilled labor, factory building, machines, tools, equipments, they do not change with the change in output. They remain the same. If we want to bring about any change in the fixed factors, we can do so only in the long run and not in the short run. What therefore are variable factors of production? Variable factors are those, the application of which changes with a change in the output. Unskilled labor is an example of a variable factor. More labor is needed to produce more units of the commodity, other things being constant. It increases as output increases. Examples of variable factors of production are fuel, electricity, raw materials, number of shifts, overtime, more working hours, communication, and so on, which can be changed in the short run. So you see, if we increase the amount of variable factors, we can bring about more production or more output, other things being constant. Now what are these other things? The fixed factors, which remain unchanged. Let's have a recap of the key terms like short run. What is a short run? It is a period in which every factor of production cannot be changed as per the desire of the producer. What is a long run? It is a period in which the producer has sufficient time in order to change all the factors and make them variable, which means the scale of production is changing. What are variable factors? Variable factors are those the application of which changes with a change in output. It means that to bring about a change in output, we need to change the variable factor. What are fixed factors? Fixed factors are those the application of which does not change with a change in output. Fixed factors do not get consumed in the process of production. Learn these basic concepts well so that we can go further confidently in our study of producers' behavior. Today we have learnt about production function. What is the short run and long run? What is the short run production function? What is the long run production function? And what are fixed factors and variable factors? Thank you, students, for coming with me through all these basic concepts that you need to really learn in producers' behavior if we are to go further, because if further we will be learning about some laws under the short run production function and the long run production function. And to help us to understand those laws in a better way, these key basic concepts have to be understood perfectly well. And the memory has to be made permanent, because these are the stepping stones on which you will understand more complex concepts in economics. If you have any questions, or if you want to share any examples that come in your mind relating to the concepts we've studied together, please share with me. Thank you.